this is where we start understanding paper 1 in its entirety. Again, reminding you guys of this, that this is for the October-November exams for 2026. We are not focusing on anything that May-June is going to be about. And for you guys, particularly, you are lucky in the sense that you have enough past papers to work on as well. Now, what exactly is paper 1 about? We already went through it in the last couple of minutes. So this is where we actually break up paper 1 completely, understand question number 1, question number 2 and question number 3 in its entirety. Now I think we've got the technical details out of the way. We have understood that paper 1 is going to be a 2-hour paper. It's going to be 80 marks in total. It's 50% of your IGCSE grade. It is going to test you on the understanding of 3 compulsory texts: text A, text B and text C. Text A and text B respectively are longer texts. They are going to be 700 to 750 words, whereas text C is going to be a shorter text between 500 and 650 words. However, it goes without saying that that's the text you will be focusing on more. Apart from that, Cambridge expects you guys to dedicate 15 minutes to reading, so that you have absolutely understood the texts. The entire paper is literally about comprehending, understanding, reading. Do we understand so far?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that these technical details are out of the way, let's focus on part 1, question 1, part 1, and question 1, part 2. As I told you guys earlier, question number 1 is basically divided between 2 parts. So it has multiple subparts in part 1. It has A, B, C, D, E. Whereas when it comes to part 2, it has part F only. The entire question itself is a 30 marker. And in this case, for part 1 of question 1, you will read text A. By reading text A, you will answer the subparts given. By reading text B, you will focus on part F only. Part 1 is a 15 marker in total. Part 2 is also a 15 marker in total. Part 1 is about comprehension questions. How do we tackle them? What kind of comprehension questions do we generally have to tackle, right? And then part B is about, or part 2 is about summary writing. How exactly do we write a summary? It's very easy peasy lemon squeezy, at least that's what I believe, bachcho. But I know it still can be tricky for you guys because, it's all about breaking it all up. As soon as we're able to break it up in parts, like a checklist, कि ये करना है, ये करना है, ये करना है, and that's what's going to, make a solid summary for me, we are good to go. How does the mark division work? 10 marks are literally dedicated to the understanding of the text, the points that you are basically writing down. Acha, in this case, it's extremely important because we are dedicating 10 marks to content. You need to understand that your summary should not have anything less than 10 actual points. Do we understand so far? So a minimum of 10 points and a maximum of 12 points are needed. So far, so good? Whereas the rest of the 5 marks are dedicated to the quality of your answer. Now, let's actually focus on question number 1, part 1 and part 2 in this lesson. I'm not going to be discussing part 2 at this point, question 2, part 1 and 2, and then question 3 at this point. We'll get to this later. All right. Now, the first thing that I absolutely cannot ignore, neither should you guys, and something that we should really think about is the understanding of command words. Now, command words is generally one of those, it's one of those ignored topics or ignored points given by Cambridge that literally cost you a lot of marks. How many of you are familiar with understanding command words or the understanding of command words? Afan, are you?
Kind of. I have a basic idea of it.
Okay, that's good enough. Alina, what about you?
Same.
Okay. So, Bacho, the thing is, command words are basically, you could simply say in a manner of speaking, a word that gives you a command, a word that gives you a certain order. But that's literally what command literally translates to, right? An order. Isn't that the case? Or giving some sort of instructions? Command words are generally found at the beginning of your question statement, right? And according to that, you will be expected to answer the question. So the question's demand is supposed to be understood from the command word itself. Your answer is supposed to be descriptive in nature, it's supposed to be explanatory in nature, it's supposed to be simply one word of an answer. Whatever it is supposed to be, that has to be understood by the understanding of command words. Do we understand that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's take a look at a few command words that generally appear in the exam papers, generally appear in the past papers, and generally what Cambridge examiners want us to understand. Now, the first one is identify. Now, what exactly do you have to do? This table tells you what not to do and then an example. All right. So the what to do is to simply locate the information and state it precisely. That's it. Afan, when were you born? Or identify when Afan was born. Let's suppose a passage on Afan, and they want us to identify when Afan was born. You will simply write down the date and the year when they were born. When exactly would basically talk about the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So simply put, you need to locate the information and state it precisely. That's it. No explanations needed. And this is generally a 1 mark question. Do we understand this so far? So
Yeah.
for example, identify the month the shop closed, April. That's it, bacho. And that will get you the complete mark. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, Alina, so far so good?
Yes.
Okay. Then the next command word is give. Now, give is also important. Simply, it's asking you to supply the number of facts, reasons, or examples being asked for. Again, important, guys. You need to understand that identify and give simply are asking you to give the exact information as required. Again, do not offer 1 point twice, particularly if it's a 1 marker. Number one. Number two, no explanations needed as such. So for example, give 2 reasons why the path was closed. You will give us just 2 reasons to get 2 points, 2 marks. Good to go, guys?
Yeah.
Explain. Now this is where you make the meaning, reason, or implication clear. Now copying the text is not going to go in your favor. Again, understand this, guys, that generally this exam paper, this question is testing you on understanding skills. How well are you able to understand the passage given? In this case, that is text A. This isn't like junior school or middle school where you were told to just simply read out the passage and the teacher would mark you on your fluency or your pronunciation. It's not like that. Reading in this case means to understand. And then can you actually give us the right information as required? And in that case, you will be required to read in between the lines as well. So, how many are familiar with this term, reading in between the lines? Any ideas, guys? What does that mean?
Yeah, basically just reading the text on a deeper level to understand some things hidden behind the text.
Okay, good enough. Alina, is that what you think it is as well?
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. So basically going beyond the surface matter, delving deeper into it. Just in Urdu we say, someone taunts us on something and we say कि जो कहना है सीधी तरह कहो, right? Do not go about in circles. या ढके छुपे अल्फाजों में मत कहो. You know what I'm saying, guys? So we have to delve deeper, and this is basically done for several purposes. Not just when you're taunting someone. It could be done for several purposes, all right? But as the reader, as the student, you are supposed to delve deeper, number one. Number two, you also have to make sure that you use your own words as much as possible. But generally when the text or the question is telling you to use your own words. Do we understand? Or when the certain command word itself portrays that you're supposed to use your own words. So for example, in this case, give 2 reasons explain why the visitor was reluctant to sit down. In this case, we obviously understand that we have to go beyond the surface. The answer is not given as it is, so there's obviously no chance of it being written down as it is, right? We will have to write the answer in our own words. Isn't that the case?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have using your own words. Now replace the important vocabulary while keeping the meaning, basically. Now this is an extremely important question because generally students believe that changing a sentence or changing a certain statement means changing it entirely. But so what we need to focus on is changing the keywords, not the helping verbs, not the articles, not the prepositions. You know what I'm saying? The meaning should remain intact. We need to make sure that we are changing the keywords. We are bringing in synonyms, not fancy words, not words like flabbergasted, you know. Cambridge is not expecting students of your age to use fancy words or to have memorized the dictionary. You know what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
Do we understand so far?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okie dokie then. All right. So moving on, in this case, you have to make sure use synonyms. Tell the reader, tell the examiner that you are a proficient first language user. How can you tell them this? You're obviously not having a direct conversation with them. You are telling them this through your exam paper. That yes, I am a proficient language user. I know synonyms and I can do this. All right. So do not rearrange the original wording and hope it counts. That's not going to get you marks. Explain in your own words what is meant by a hollow promise. Can you guys tell me this? Explain in your own words what is meant by a hollow promise. Afan, why don't you go first?
Basically, promise that you make but you can't keep.
Okay. What if you have to explain it into a statement?
Like a sentence.
Yes.
I could say my brother made a hollow promise with me.
No, like explain. Okay, all right. I got it. Not in a sentence exactly, but that's fine. All right, let's hold on to this. Ali, now why don't you tell me now?
It's basically when a person makes a promise which he knows he will not fulfill.
They know that they will not be able to fulfill. So basically, because can we simply say a promise that is unlikely to be kept? A promise that's not sincere?
Yeah.
Did I use any fancy words? No.
No.
I simply used the next best word, right? That makes sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. All right, let's move on then. According to the text, now take the answer from the passage only. Do not add any general information or opinions to it though. Your answer needs to come from the passage. So according to the text, what did the storm damage first? In this scenario, your answer is going to be in the text and you will be able to find it. Remember this one thing, guys, an examiner knows what they are doing. The person who has set the paper, they know what they have made. So the answer is definitely there. You just simply need to find it. Do we understand? Okay.
Yeah.
Reread the paragraph. Search only within the paragraph or the lines named. I think I cannot stress on this point enough. Please make sure that you are reading the exact lines given. Do not answer from anywhere else in the passage because this is one of those problems that I've literally seen students making in the exam paper where they write the answer from a certain few other lines or a certain few other paragraphs perhaps. So reread, let's suppose paragraphs 4 and 5. Your answer is going to be from there. You have to be the one who is focused enough to be able to find the answer. All right. Now, and by the way, these are all our command words, guys. So I hope you're following on that. Okay. Now, what does this suggest? Draw a reasonable inference from a clue in the text. What do we mean by the word inference?
Yes, sir.
What do we mean by the word inference? inference?
We have to refer something.
Okay. Afan, any idea better?
No, probably the same thing.
Acha, so let me just break it down in simple words. You get to a conclusion, ठीक है? You get to a certain conclusion because you worked out certain clues from the passage. Acha, let's suppose I tell you guys the amusement park looks abandoned. The amusement park looked abandoned. You guys were not there with me, and I'm just telling you this. I was the only one there. And you asked me, how do you know it was abandoned? I'll tell you, I could see the broken or the ruined carousels. I could see dust gathering on the arcade games perhaps. I could see a few broken chairs lying here and there, right? And that would simply tell me, and that simply told me actually, that this place has been abandoned for a long time. Do you guys understand?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yes? So,
Yes.
clues. You have to work out the clues, guys. I think I missed a certain command word. I think I missed this one, right? Okay, we'll get to this in a bit. So basically, drawing inference means understanding something, reaching a conclusion by going through certain clues. That's literally what happens in a court of law. Isn't that the case? They have evidence, they have clues, and then they get to a certain conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically what this suggest means. What does this suggest means? So for example, what does his silence suggest about how he felt? Maybe someone's silence, being silent means that they were awkward, or maybe they are hurt or disappointed to that point where they have gone silent. You know what I'm saying, guys? But that is simply depending on the context. So we are not going to assume here what this probably means, right? Now, what does the writer mean by? Now, in this case, you give the meaning the word carries in this sentence. This is where we come to an understanding of these two terms. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but let me put this down for you. Connotation versus denotation. Are you guys familiar with these terms?
No.
Okay. All right then. Denotation is basically the dictionary meaning of a certain word, the literal meaning of a certain word. Whereas connotation is the meaning in context. So, for example, if I say home. Now, home, in terms of its literal meaning, means it's a place to live in. That's right. It's a place where people live, or people or animals for that matter, any living things, right? Living beings.
Yeah.
So that's the literal meaning of it. But in its contextual meaning, home can be a place of comfort, warmth. It could literally be a person. Home is where your loved ones are. Does not necessarily means a building, right? You know what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
So, for example, I could literally say to my friends, maybe I could say, you guys are my home. Does that mean I live in them? No. What do we mean? We mean to tell them that I feel that comfortable with you as I would feel in a place where I live, right? That you are mine. That's the message that I'm trying to portray, right?
Yes.
So in this case, we have to understand the contextual meaning, guys. So give the meaning the word carries in this sentence. And in English, one word can have multiple meanings, by the way. For example, let's take the word board. Now, board can literally mean a piece of wood as well, right? But it can also mean like a board of directors, right? A group of people heading an organization. It could also mean to board the bus, get on the bus. You know what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
So in this case, we will be figuring out the contextual meaning. So do not give a general dictionary definition. That's not the requirement. What does the writer mean by drifted here? Here, context. The context will be understood to you once you have completed